Okay, so today we're going to go over section 4, 5, and 6 of our lesson plan. And my lesson plan centers around the text of Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. And so on the activity section, what activities have you planned? I have planned the following activities for Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. I'll do Introduction and Modeling. I'll introduce the text to my students, provide a historic overview of what is happening during the time period the text was written, provide lesson plan objectives, and discuss how we're going to master them. I think it's important to let them have some historical overview, give them a little background. They already have a little bit of information on slavery, but it's kind of generic. So, touch base on, the history of what's happened up to this point in time. Always kind of going back to, identifying and demonstrating the understanding of slavery in relation to the text. We won't be able to do that when it's over, so we got to know where we're coming from to start with. So then we got to know where we're going. So we've got to know what our objectives are and how we're going to get there. We're going to do guided practice throughout this lesson. We're going to work as a whole. In two different areas. First, when I introduce the text, we're going to read the text aloud. And so we're going to be able to discuss themes and events and, do that aloud and answer any questions or provide any pertinent information they need. And then we're going to come back to the whole group later. But after we get through with the reading aloud and everything, we're going to break up into small groups. And the students will be able to complete an activity worksheet about the text, lesson-based worksheet. So additional guided practice, doing that collaborative learning. We're also going to do some independent practice. The students are going to be given an exit ticket each day, and that way they can help ensure that or help me to make sure I'm getting across the mastery of the subject matter, and that they're grasping it, and that there's areas that aren't being left unfilled, that they're getting a total big picture here, so we can make sure that we're hitting all the high points. In closing, we're going to come back to that whole group. We're going to review the small activity worksheet that we did, go over the answers, make sure everybody's on the same page as far as why the answers are correct and everything. Review the objectives of what we learned that day and how what we learned is meeting the overall objectives, and just kind of reinforce, that learning is taking place. And then we're going to have a formative assessment, a teacher-made formative assessment at the completion of the lesson. And after a review, it's going to consist of multiple choice questions, fill-in-the-blank questions, and open-ended questions. So that way the students, have a little bit broader base of choices. At least they on the multiple choice have something to choose from. Fill in the blank, they can narrow it down. And then some students do better with open-ended, where they can, express how they think or feel, get those higher order thinking caps on, and show us, what they've really learned. Why have you chosen these activities? I've chosen these specifics under Introduction and Modeling because students will start the lesson with basic information needed for understanding, as well as know the goals and how we plan to meet those goals into the lesson. Working as a whole group will make it easier for the read aloud. Reviewing answers to small group work and questions and information can be provided as a whole. Small groups for collaboration on lesson-based worksheet. Independent practice will consist of an exit ticket. It will show me whether or not students are mastering the skills individually. And in closing, a whole group will be utilized for review of lessons, small group activity answers, questions and thoughts, and a teacher-made formative assessment will be given to ensure student mastery and to find areas needed for review. Section 5 is materials and resources. What instructional materials will you use, if any? Of course, we'll need the text itself, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, for teacher and student use. Pencils for student use for completing the lesson-based worksheet, also for taking notes, and for doing their exit ticket. Notebook paper for note-taking for the students. I'll need a dry erase marker for making discussion notes on the board. If we're going to be having a formative assessment, and some of my students, may not be great at note taking. So I'm going to try to help them build on their note taking skills throughout the year as well. So one of the things I want to instill in them is if it's something important enough for me to write on the board, it's something important enough they need to make it in their notes, because they're probably going to see it on the test. So I'll need a dry erase marker so I can do that. A worksheet for the small group activity, and note cards for their daily exit ticket. I figure note cards are small enough and easy enough that I can use those and they can still get their point across. They have front and back to write on. I have chosen these materials and resources listed because they will best facilitate student learning and understanding while working towards meeting the objectives. The text will be used throughout the whole lesson. Students will use pencils while making notes during the read aloud, completing the worksheet during the small group activity, and when concluding the day with the exit ticket. Students will utilize the notebook paper for note taking during read aloud. I will use the dry erase markers during read aloud for writing definitions of unfamiliar words, emphasizing items of interest. These are what I'll talk about later to appear on a test. Document information I want students to make notes on for future reference, etc. And the evaluation. How and when do you plan to evaluate student learner on the content of this lesson? I plan to evaluate student learning through the use of the following. Questions and answers throughout the lesson. Just kind of as throw out their feedback. Just kind of reassurance, just a head nod here and there, or eye contact, thumbs up from students, for them to let me know that they're getting it, they're grasping it. If I ask a question and no one can tell me the answer, then I know I've got to go back and we need to hit that area again harder. We'll be doing small group activities consisting of lesson-based worksheets. These will help also let me know if they're understanding the material and if we're getting our objectives met. The exit ticket at the end of the class will let me know individually if my students are understanding and grasping the concepts. And then the teacher-made formative assessment at the completion of the lesson and after a review. Why have you chosen this approach for evaluation? I have chosen these options for evaluations for several reasons. By asking questions throughout the lesson, that is immediate feedback to me if the students are or are not grasping the material. I will assign a small group activity of lesson-based worksheet to further test understanding and the student's ability to work collaboratively. Sorry, that's a big word. A daily exit ticket will provide me with the information of whether the student as an individual is mastering the material, and if not, this allows me the opportunity to revisit areas that are shown by exit tickets to be weak in understanding. Then, after the lesson has been completed and a review of all the information conducted, I will administer a teacher-made formative assessment. This assessment will consist of multiple choice questions, fill-in-the-blank questions, and open-ended questions. And on this formative assessment, it will also give me a chance to make sure that they are understanding not just the objectives in relation to this text. Later on in the semester, we're going to study Harriet Tubman, and so this will give me an opportunity to see if they're going to be able to apply these objectives possibly to that same work, because it's a work of likeness. So, that kind of helps me look forward to that as well. And so those are the reasons that I have chose these, and I hope I am on task. Thank you.